Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Dr. Michelle Villagran, chair of the San Jose State University School of Information Diversity Committee. I want to welcome you to our 2020 Diversity Webinar Series for our university faculty and students. This is the first webinar in our 8-part series where our presenters will be fostering discussion and sharing content around diverse topics, which align with our goals of inclusive excellence, diversity, equity, and inclusion. You will be able to find a full list of sessions, topics, and presenters on our upcoming webcast page, which I will pop in the chat momentarily. You all are on mute as we are recording each session, and we will make them available on our website afterwards for future viewing, along with any materials the presenters would like to provide. If you do have any questions throughout today's webinar, please place them in the chat window, and Kira will address them either during the session or at the end for Q&A. And with that, I would like to introduce today's session, Librarians Being Open-Minded Professionals, Fostering Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity, presented by Kira Vargas.
How are you? Great day to you all. As she said, my name is Kiara Vargas, and currently I am an instructor at Tennessee State in the Language, Literature, and Philosophy Department. I hold about 16 years total of education experience, and will share the purpose of this webinar, which is to address an issue that we are currently fighting. We are expecting diversity, equity, and inclusion amongst us. But what I've come to realize is that the issue is actually being open-minded. We need to learn to be open-minded prior to addressing DEI. So as we walk through understanding this simple but yet complex term, we will also find strategies, and I want this to be more of a conversational webinar. I know I can't hear you, but I can chat with you. So throughout this hour, I would like to hold discussions with you about this phrase, the challenges of going straight into DEI versus being open-minded, and understanding practical experiences that I have, along with several that I took the opportunity to listen to from fellow colleagues. I'm avoiding statistics and data. However, you can always research them yourselves to see why this notion is important in this profession. So this session will include the definition of what it means to be an open-minded librarian. It would also include strategies to assist us with creating such an atmosphere within your library, regardless of the type of library that you work. Understanding how essential being open-minded is before addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And again, I want to ensure that we are interacting, there's great conversations, and we have time for self-reflection. Prior to us looking at this clip, I want to share a story. I love stories. So one of the first things that came to mind when I thought about this topic some time before was episode number 2 of The Office. My 17-year-old son, he asked me to watch it with him a couple of months ago. And surprisingly, this is one of his favorite shows. So one of his best friends, a friend of mine, and both of us sat in silence watching this episode, like I said, a couple of months ago. No words can even explain how uncomfortable we were while we were watching this. But periodically, we stopped, we laughed, and we shared our personal experiences with racism, judgment, bias, and assumptions that are made about us. His 6-foot friend is Black with what some might consider unkept hair. My son is almost 6'2", and I make him actually keep his hair short. One of my best girlfriends who we were with, she's an engineer, one of the only few Black engineers in her department, and she has what people consider dreadlocks. She has locks. And at that time, I had this funky short haircut with designs on the side. And I'm sharing our hairstyles because this is most important, because many people cannot ever get past hairstyles, even in 2020. When I had my locks, I was even constantly judged. So this right here is important. As my girlfriend shared, we are the ones that are attacked and have to dim our lights, which is unfair. And we, in this case, she's referring to Black children, Black mothers, Black fathers, and oftentimes, again, our hairstyles are preventing individuals from giving us a chance. Why does this tie into open-minded? again, before we watch this clip, this summer I took a 2,500-mile sabbatical, not including a cruise that I took to 3 different locations. I had these really long braids, kind of similar to what I have now. And when I travel for fun, I like to create names and just a whole new persona about myself. So I made up a new name, and while I'm in the mirror, I was not Kiara at the time. I'm not sure if I was Tracy or Logan or Shirley, whoever I was fixing my hair, fixing my makeup, and a woman stared at me for a moment before she complimented me. And she asked me about my hair. She asked if she could touch my hair. And while I had no problem with this, I thought about how uncomfortable this might have been for someone else. Her next statement takes us to the topic of being open-minded and how this proceeds prior to fostering the DEI concepts. She says she has never been this close to a Black woman to touch her hair, particularly braids. We talked for a few minutes more, and her overall knowledge of anything outside of her white background, and pardon me because I believe she was either from Utah or Oregon, I cannot remember, is televised. So she said the only experience that she had ever had with a Black woman was on television. This is a common issue, and because of this, many cannot truly accept diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you cannot show that you can be open-minded to learn and see that everything might not be what you see on social media or on television, and even in a real encounter, you will fail at this concept. So with this being said, I would like to watch this clip, a little short clip of Diversity Day from The Office.
Lots of cultures eat rice. It doesn't help me. Shalom. I'd like to apply for a loan.
That's nice, Dwight.
Okay, do me. Something stereotypical so I can get it really quick.
Okay, I like your food.
Outback Steakhouse. I'm Australian, mate.
Pam.
No.
Pam, come on. I like your food. No, come on. Stir the pot. Stir the melting pot, Pam. Let's do it. Let's get ugly. Let's get real.
Okay. If I have to do this, based on stereotypes that are totally untrue, that I do not agree with, you would maybe not be a very good driver.
Oh, man, am I a woman?
You'll notice I didn't have anybody be an Arab. I thought that would be too explosive. No pun intended. But I just thought too soon for Arabs. Maybe next year. The ball's in their court.
What are you watching?
Chappelle Show?
Really?
Yeah. I downloaded it on her computer. I hope she doesn't mind. She just had a lot of extra
No
space.
way, no. I think she really likes this stuff.
Great. She's cute, huh?
Yeah. She's engaged, but...
Oh, no. The girl in the sketch.
Oh, yeah. She's hot.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey.
you want to go to the beach?
Sure.
You want to get high?
No.
I think you do, Mon.
Stop it.
Okay, all right, no. All right, it's good. You need to push it. You need to go a little bit further. All right. Okay. Kelly, how are you?
I just had the longest meeting.
Oh, welcome to my convenience store. Would you like some googie? Oh, I have some very delicious googie. Only 99 cents plus tax. Try my googie. Try my googie. Try my googie. Try my... All right.
So my question for you is to think about this. What or how does diversity, equity, and inclusion look in your environment? And again, are you open-minded? There's a song that I want to listen to, but prior to listening to this song, I want to, again, take a moment to just kind of go through why we are in this webinar. Librarians are the gateway for change in our communities. And this is the write-up of the webinar. The problem, again, is we are failing to address being open-minded. So I have 5 questions for you all to think about as you listen to this song. Question number 1, are you an open-minded librarian? Number 2, do you see yourself in your patrons? Number 3, is it important to be open-minded? Number 4, what have you done that might be considered open-minded lately? And what about your library? And number 5, can you skip to DEI without being open-minded? And granted, this is something that we're talking about. I'm still evaluating opinions because some people may say it is. So with that being said, we're going to take a moment to listen to this song. But as you listen to this song, I want you to self-reflect.
I know it's crazy to think of this daily. Imagine no one needing guns all at once. Impossible, maybe, but we've never tried it. The whole world in silence, respecting each other, our gods and our brothers, killing with kindness. But instead, he cries for his daughter, and she cries for her son. And we all cry together, 'cause we've all lost someone. And it hurts us no different what color our skin is. It's the same unfortunate pain, and most of the time we are to blame. But who's to say that we can't change and give one love to everyone? And who decides it's not the time to give one love to everyone? Now can you imagine, if you couldn't imagine, the level of violence in parts of the world that perpetually happens? Like if you were just shopping or stuck in a drive-thru, and all of a sudden you look up and boom, somebody bombed you. And day after day, I'm convinced it gets worse. The school should never be a place where the children get hurt. Hard enough as it is, every mouth must be fed. It's not that we don't care, we're just too consumed with ourselves. But who's to say that we can't change and give one love to everyone? And who decides that we can't try to give one love to everyone? But who's to say that we can't change and give one love to everyone? And who decides that we can't try to give one love to everyone?
So I would like to stop here for a moment just to open up the floor for any comments or any questions. If you do, please share them. I give a couple of seconds, and if I don't see any, I will continue to move on. Any questions? Anyone want to share what you believe open-mindedness is? Does anyone want to share what they feel like they have done lately to be open-minded? Okay. Well, I'm going to continue with my stories. So a story that I'll never forget is a conversation that I had with a great librarian. I lived overseas for a bit, and in 2017, I had the pleasure of working with volunteering at a library. We had so many discussions, but one particular discussion that I really remember was about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I shared with her my reading experiences as a child. I shared with her that my dad took me to the library every weekend. He did many things with me that in the 80s and 90s, many of my peers, unfortunately, because of our circumstances, they weren't able to experience. And one of those experiences was not just taking me to the library, but also, we'll skip to the next slide, but we'll come back to this slide. But also, I'm sorry, one more. But also, making sure I had a Black baby doll. This librarian, she looked at me and she never really, she shared with me, she never saw the importance of that. My dad had never purchased me a white doll. And like I said, I never really understood that or even thought of it until I became a professional. He introduced me to Ann and Martin's Babysitter Club. Let's go back a couple of slides. And while the lives of those young girls were different from my split household and middle school, years that they did encourage me to love to read. The only other book during my elementary and early middle school years that I remember that was appropriate was Maya Angelou for me. From there, I jumped right into books that they fit my life. Donald Goins and even Dick Gregory's book entitled Nigger. We both loved, from there I jumped, but a friend of mine who looked like me discussed a few days ago, those books didn't necessarily fit her life. We both loved reading and we're both librarians. And as we share, it's a hard job for librarians to just truly get it. And what I mean by getting it is trying to be open-minded enough to be able to reach all of your patrons. As I shared these two stories and another, I recall the librarian sharing that she never thought of, again, having a Black baby or even thinking about text that was important to young Black girls, young Asian girls, young Latina girls. She never really saw that. What I love most about this conversation and this librarian was her ability to be open-minded. I always love visiting the library because they took the time to listen, not to just me, but to so many of the patrons that came to visit. And one of the things that we have to be mindful of when we're thinking about being open-minded is we have to be impartial. We have to understand that your life is not my life. You must deal with patrons and see them as humans. And remember, as humans, we are all imperfectly perfect. You must take out your personal beliefs. And oftentimes we can't do that. And you must put them to the side sometimes and be willing to learn. Think about that clip that we just looked at with Diversity Day from The Office. We have to make sure we are being impartial. Thinking this outside the box is essential to help with patrons. Being open-minded begins with you as a librarian. So again, I question you. We're self-reflecting. What have you done lately to show that you are open-minded? Particularly since we touch so many lives, and our patrons may not look like us, they may not speak like us, they may not have any similarities like us, but we have to be willing to step in and not judge. And that is prior to fostering that idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Being open-minded, it includes us as educators, because as librarians, that's the first thing we are. We are educators. We are those gatekeepers to ensuring that that our communities never stop learning, so we can never stop learning. Being open-minded means we can never totally be subjective in this profession, because we are supposed to assist our patrons with being those change agents. So who will be that person to advocate for our patrons that are battling, with identifying themselves because of their skin color, their hair type, their sexual preference, their socioeconomic status? So in order to, again, assist with diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have to be open-minded, which means that we have to ensure that we are taking time to self-reflect. I see a comment from Ms. Julia Brahman. We work with our marketing departments to make sure our web presence, and our flyers reflect diversity we see in the library every day. Thank you. So question for you all, think about this, and if you will share your comments in the chat, how might you be able to enhance the culture of your library to foster this concept? I'll give a couple of seconds. If you'll please share. Anyone? I know some of the things that I noticed in libraries, I'm always visiting different libraries. I just moved here to Nashville, Tennessee, and I visited a few libraries, and I traveled a couple of weeks ago, and I stopped to go to libraries, is I look on their shelves, and I'm looking to see what type of books they have. I go to their websites to see what type of programs they have. So, how might you be able to do this in your own library? Because again, being open-minded is completely different from fostering that DEI. Partner with student organizations that are multicultural. Thank you. Yes, that's a great idea. Yes, especially, on college campuses. And I know one of the questions that someone asked me recently was, well, what if I was a medical school, a medical librarian, or what if I was a law librarian? There's still many things that you can do to walk in and be open-minded, taking the time just to learn. And with that being said, we're going to move forward, and I want to share a collection, just two of them that I actually took from two friends who are, well, here's one more, I'm sorry. How might my experiences, or experiences that you might have had help you to think of ways to be open-minded in your current position? I see another comment. Despite the lack of diversity in the area of my library, our staff ensures that displays includes a wide range of diverse books, and that's so great. That's amazing. And I think what'll also help is by reading these books, and I'll share a story about that later, but just taking the time to even if it's not the genre that you would particularly read, taking the time to read, because if you're able to do that, then you're being open-minded enough to have a conversation with your patrons, and they totally love that. I have partnered with your university Dreamer Undocumented Resource Center by creating a research guide with resources with mine. That's awesome. That's really awesome. Does anyone have any questions about potential ways that they can be open-minded? You can add those up there and we'll walk through the next slide. So if we don't take time to be open-minded and we shut people off, these are comments that we will receive as librarians. A medical friend of mine shared, I hated going to the library, and it should be hated, going to the library because the librarian never made me feel comfortable. I'm already intimidated as a Black male in medical school, he said, but it became more frustrating when I walked into the library for assistance, and it seemed as if she never wanted to help me, but she helped his white classmates. And again, that's perception, but that perception is real. So how does, again, being open-minded, how would, me, you, someone could have changed that? Another another classmate of mine, a law classmate, graduated a few years before I did, said, I sat in the library one day reading over an assignment that they had in their 2L year. I could not understand the assignment, and I saw a librarian sitting behind the desk. I went over to see if she could help me, and she never looked up at me. A white female came up, and about 20 minutes later, she engaged in a conversation. That pissed him off. So again, how can we be open-minded? And think back to that very first story. Sometimes perceptions are real, and that again is the reason why we need to take a moment to be open-minded prior to fostering that DEI. So preconceived notions, they could lead to failing to assist our professional students, and it could also lead to failing even our patrons. Some of our patrons come in and they could be intimidated by us. So how can we, again, foster that, being open-minded? Thinking about those two scenarios, what can we do to prevent these behaviors? Like I said, I visited several different libraries just over the last couple of weeks. I travel so much, and it's like one of my hobbies is I stop by the library. So how can we prevent this behavior? Being open-minded. What exactly is open-mindedness? I keep talking about this word, but what exactly is it? Accepting a new proposal. It relates to the way in which people approach the views and knowledge of others, and incorporates the belief that others should be free to express their views and that the value of others' knowledge should be recognized. I want you to think about coming up with your own definition of open-mindedness as we listen to Stevie Wonder's song. As we listen, think about what is needed for you to help maybe your library to dwell into being open-minded so that we can tackle the DEI. Can you love your neighbor despite their sexuality? Can you love your neighbor despite their racial makeup? So I want you to just brainstorm. We're going to take about 2 minutes, listen to just 2 minutes of this song, and we're going to think about ways that you can use this approach in your library. Could you go back and click And I see good customer service, but also trying to go one step beyond for anyone who appears to be part of a marginalized group. In answer to that fact, that they probably aren't experiencing that with folks other than you, absolutely. And Ms. Lopez, listen to students, hearing on their needs and supporting them in their journey. That's totally important. So we're gonna listen to this song, and again, as we listen to this song, think about ways that you can assist other people with being open-minded in your library.
Marcus.
I'm Sunny D. Vegan Ariel.
I'm Captain Wong, and I'm from South Dakota.
Good morning or evening, friends. Here's your friendly announcer. I have serious news to pass on to everybody. What I'm about to say could mean the world's disaster. Could change your joy and laughter to tears and pain. It's that love in need of love today. Don't delay, send yours in right away. Hey, going round, breaking many hearts. Stop it, please, before it's gone too far. The force of evil plans to make you its possession, and it will if we let it.
Thank you. So the comments that I'm getting are really amazing. Looking at Brandy mentioned that this can be challenging in her environment because it's a correctional library where the patrons group themselves by ethnicity. I'm glad to participate. Okay. Then I see thinking about the other people, complexity beyond the topic at hand or what you're thinking. They aren't just one thing. At our library, we have a citizenship and ESL class for adults. We've also had a pride program for high school students to be able to express themselves, be recognized, and be with individuals in their community. our displays always represent different cultures, so our community knows we have items for everyone. So I want to tackle Brandy's comment first, and interestingly, I went to an event the other day and I picked up this book by Wanda Smalls-Lloyd. It's a really great book. I've only gotten through maybe the first 2 chapters, but it's amazing. Her story is just amazing. Inside this book, and this is for Brandy, ironically, I have a letter. I've been writing a prisoner for about 16 years, and this prisoner, ironically, is an old middle school classmate of mine. By the time he was 20 years old, he had 5 kids. One of his kids, she actually wants to be a lawyer. She actually wants to be a librarian, and I'm both of those things. So I've been nurturing her and guiding her. She's in her early 20s, and she just started college not too long ago. But one of the things that he and I do, we write each other. And I know that this is not necessarily tackling your question, but it may help you to get ideas. He shared that when he was in middle school and when he was in high school, he was never able to learn about himself. He felt incompetent. And so throughout our time writing each other, one of the things that I did assist him with, I used to send him worksheets. And he was able to obtain his GED some years ago, but he always asked me questions about books that I'm reading. This particular letter asks about my students. He wanted to know how did I like my new courses. He wanted to know what my students were reading, because he wanted to see if he could read that too. So to answer your questions, maybe find books that, the students can read together, like some type of book challenge. Or book talk with them. That's a potential solution. Any questions? Any comments so far? Ideas are always appreciated. Thank you. Confident in the library and books. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. But even picking up articles, like maybe picking up articles, one of the books that, and it's actually a news segment that I read with students, I think it was last semester, the semester before, was Rosalie. Rosalie by Leon Dash is actually a book, but it comes from the Washington Post. And the school, I worked at a at-risk school, and all of my students were able to relate to this, and they were able to talk amongst themselves regarding this piece. So I don't know, something like that could maybe break that cycle of separating everyone. Are there any questions, any comments? And Diana, I really love your comment too, just going back to that, thinking about other people completely beyond the topic at hand or what you're thinking. You're right, they just aren't one thing. So I want to kind of share another story. I am totally full of stories. My students share with me that that's one of the things that they love about being in my class is I always have a story. I taught high school in 2017 and 2018, so I went back to teaching high school. I taught 11th grade, 12th grade, a yearbook course, and this was my first time back in the K-12 class in almost 10 years. And I was truly surprised by the lack of diverse books and activities that we have in 2018, 2019, and 2020. So many of my colleagues, they were still stuck on books such as Huck Finn. They did not want to bring out diverse books. And I realized that, again, it was the failure of being open-minded. They were afraid to make changes. So one quote that I shared, that someone shared with me, that I discussed diversity and I discussed my Blackness too much during Black History Month, and during different months, I try to celebrate every month I try to celebrate with a different book based off of the month. One was upset because I actually stopped reading Huck Finn after chapter 10 to modify using the U.S. Library of Congress slave narrative. So again, I'm being open-minded. Instead of me just going to just read Huck Finn the entire time, I figured, hey, we're looking at the slave gem. Let's take a moment to share with my students actual slave narratives from the U.S. Library of Congress. So I also read books such as The Pearl, The Alchemist, and my students were able to complete assignments that were creative and they were able to read these books they were still able to relate to. I studied my students. So just like I study my students, and I know we're talking about the context of librarians, but you're studying your patrons, because I know oftentimes we have the same people to come in, and I'm certain many of you that are on this webinar, you can attest that you probably speak with many of your patrons and you're probably, sharing different books. And again, that's being open-minded. So I learned their backgrounds and their cultures so they would not be eliminated out of my lesson. So throughout the year, I was able to touch my students based off of their background. I had a teacher come to my class one of these years, and this goes back to my story, to ask how I was able to engage all students. Her question was actually not that appropriate. Her question was, how are you able to reach those types of students? And I shared with her how I study my students. I gave her suggestions, the same way I'm giving you all suggestions, as she taught about the Holocaust, to introduce excerpts from slave narratives. We were teaching at a predominantly African-American school, and I suggested to her maybe juxtapose the Holocaust to the prison industrial complex, introducing them to Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, and a few other pieces of text. But her comment was, I don't know anything about this. And this is what I've also found, that so many of my librarian friends, we think this, they think the same way. I don't know much about this, but that is the joy of being a librarian. We are able to always further our knowledge. So the students, I made a few more attempts at trying to convince her that not knowing was a good thing, because you're teaching your students and your students are able to teach you. You're able to teach your patrons are able to teach you. Being open-minded. The students I shared don't know anything about what you're teaching, which I share with her, so you both have room to teach each other. Sadly, her response was that she was not open to doing any of this, and in my opinion, she failed her students. So again, we have to be open-minded in all aspects of education. As a librarian, regardless of what entity of being a librarian we are, we have to make sure we're being open-minded. One of the things that I pride myself on, my students encouraged me to read manga. And so I started off with Death Note, and I would walk around different places with Death Notes, and I actually started loving manga. So, just being open-minded, you find that you may learn something from your students. So as we continue to push forward to DEI, we must first check ourselves. Ideas are, okay, it would be great to host a book discussion on a diverse book at my library. I'd just be concerned that patrons wouldn't want to attend because they would assume it's boring or that it doesn't apply to them. Any ideas on how to overcome this concern? Yes. You can actually bring in people to host the book discussions. I know one of the things that I did, I feel like I'm pretty smart, but I don't know everything. So a couple of years ago in my high school class, I had 45 virtual guests throughout my year. So every single week we had a guest, and my guests, they shared something with my students. I had a really good girlfriend that teaches over at San Francisco State. And as my students, we read Recitative by Toni Morrison, I had her facilitate that short story discussion. So bringing other people in to discuss, that would be a really good idea if you're open to that. For Charmaine, what about a book club that celebrates diversity? Yes. Thank you, Julie. Absolutely. Thank you. Are there any other questions before I keep going? I'm enjoying this. Yes, Andy. It was a genocide of millions of people. She had discipline issues in her class, and it was because her students, they felt, go ahead, okay, 6 million Jews and millions. Her students felt as if they just couldn't, they just didn't relate to it. So I shared with her to just kind of talk about both of those entities. I had so many students in that class that their parents were locked up, their uncles, so many of their family members were locked up. And yes, it's completely different. It's a genocide of millions of people, but it was still a way for them to teach her, and she was able to teach them, and they were able to juxtapose two different texts. Again, we're being open-minded. So with that being said, any other questions or comments? So just remembering that if we cannot understand that our life is not the only way, our thoughts are not the only thoughts, we're not going to succeed at committing to not being judgmental, which is the diversity part. We're not going to be able to prevent ourselves from discriminating on the basis of race, color, national origin, age, marital status, which is the equity part. And we're also not going to be able to include everyone on the inclusion part of it. So how can you bring this into your library, or how can you, maybe brainstorm with your staff to first take this open mind approach so that you can ensure that you are living out the DEI. So I love to brainstorm. I love self-reflecting. So as we listen to Sam Cooke, I want you to take a moment to ask yourself, how can you work on step one? Step one being open-minded to ensure that you will have effective DEI practices in place. And please continue to chat in the box and I will respond.
She's so big, but she don't ever know what she wants. Girl, are you with me? And are you just leading me? I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Oh, there's been time that I thought I could last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a
So I only have a few more minutes. So I wanted to address how would I bring on virtual guests for book talks? Something that I did, and I guess it's, I have a huge support system, and I kind of call people up and, hey, can you do this for me? And for some reason, they always say yes to me. But I had just a list of people that I knew in different professions. So everything that I covered, I felt like I had somebody to connect with, and they were more than willing to do it. I sent them T-shirts. I sent them pens, ink pens, something really small, a gift card here or there. But really, no one wanted anything because they knew that they were doing it for the kids or for patrons. So I would encourage you to reach out to people to see if they could assist you with being a virtual guest on Book Talks, because I just started Twitter, and I realized that there are so many people on Twitter that would love to do stuff like this in education. So that's one of the things that I did. This is my contact information. I have my work email, and I also have my another email address, my more business personal email, epiphanieshappen@gmail. And this is actually my cell phone number and my Twitter. I just started Twitter, so I'm still learning it. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? And Julie, thank you. It's wonderful to see you too. I appreciate this too. And you're the one that I, without putting you on blast, but your library is the one that I talked about. Being in Germany, I was able to be around some amazing librarians when I was actually in library school, when I was at Drexel. So I am so thankful for that, Julie. Thank you. Thank you. Diane, I work at a university that prides itself at Hispanic Servant Institute. We still use illegal alien. Recently, I partnered with another member of the library. Our librarians to be more open-minded about how can I prevent from feeling like this. How can I prevent from feeling? It seems like I actually had a comment, issue with that, Diane, last year when my students, we were reading Huck Finn. I kept seeing the N word over and over and over. So what I took the time to do was I educated my peers. I educated my colleagues on, the NAACP banning that word symbolically in 2008. I took the time to explain to them what coon cooking and what lynching was, and why, how that word was associated with those two horrendous acts. So I took the time to do research for them, and I shared it with them. They didn't like it, but it was a way for me to teach them in a very, professional way. So maybe you could brainstorm some ways to share with them how uncomfortable that word is. This was unique and interactive webinar. Thanks so much. Diane, did I answer your question? Thank you. Thank you from Canada. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Tiffany Wilson, yes, I cannot tell you how many issues I have faced regarding racism. Over the last couple of years, I've moved several times. I lived in Florida. I became Teacher of the Year in this really itty-bitty town, and the students were so amazing, but I never experienced racism until I got there. I was in Kentucky last year, and the same thing. So when you are facing things like that, you have to take your time and be strategic. And what I've learned is by being a librarian, we're educated people. We can always find resources. So I took the time to educate my peers. Yes, they can play a vital role. Yes, I think I'm saying your name right, Maha. Diane, come up with subject headings that students are like, yes, I heard that some of yes, that's great. I'm not on LinkedIn. Well, I am on LinkedIn, Tiffany, but I have never used it. So I need to fix that. Give me a couple of weeks and I think I'll fix that. I'll add myself up there. Were there any questions or comments? I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm very thankful that Michelle had me up here. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Kira, I wanted to really say thank you for kicking us off with this series. This was really great. And then seeing a lot of familiar names. I see some students, alumni, some San Jose and others participating.
Thank you, Kelly.
I'm going to go ahead and put the link to the upcoming webcast, so everyone does have that if you want to see what future webcasts there are coming up in the diversity series. So thank you again to Kira, and we will get the recording and materials up on our website in the next few weeks.
Thank you very much, Michelle. If you all have questions, please feel free to email me or even send me a text message. I'm open to both. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Mm-hmm.